What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Attack with me, Peter Santamaria. And one of my favorite parts of doing an interview show like the one we have on this channel is I get an excuse to talk to people who I really admire and whose work really inspires me. And one of those people is our guest, Tim Gettys, today. He is part of this group, this company called Kinda Funny, that's been a source of entertainment for me for a long time. They started off covering video game content, but they do so much more now. There's critiques of films and what pop culture in general, but also they're just a rad team of people that just create an environment that feels like you're hanging with some of your own best friends. Their model for how they broke away from IGN, the company where they started working, and created their own brand has inspired me and kind of laid a path for how I've been building Attack Peter as a brand with Skybound. So see what you think. Let me know in the comments below. Tim's amazing. Go follow them at Kinda Funny on YouTube and Instagram and all that kind of stuff. We'll put links in the description below. And if you want some Attack Peter Kinda Funny crossover, I designed this shirt. Here, let me show you. Move the mic out of the way. Of Portillo, one of their dogs. It's a wiener dog in the Superman outfit. It's kind of an inside joke for Kinda Funny, but you can head to kindafunny.com/store and pick up one of the shirts there as well. All right, guys, thank you so much. Let me give you a little intro here. Tim Gettys of Kinda Funny, one of my favorite people on a daily basis to listen to for a long time and to watch. Yeah, man, it's 100% real. See, look at that. As we were talking, the garbage truck on fire, the window popped and closed a little bit. I like it, though. I like that there's some shit that happens on these things.
Of course.
Dude, when I tell
that's how it goes, man.
Whenever I'm talking to friends or whoever about, hey, what are you watching? What do you do? I'm like, dude, to be honest with you, I can't watch a lot of like elaborate video content because I'm always working on artwork and stuff like that. And so I guess it was still when you guys were at IGN and doing the Game Over Greg on the side, but I started watching, and it's hard for me sometimes to really explain what Kinda Funny is and what your role is to someone who doesn't A, consume a lot of YouTube or internet content, and B, doesn't understand the peripheral nature of your show to the industry that you cover generally.
You know, it's still difficult for us to explain it as well, but I think that we kind of got down to a really like simple statement that I think is the essence of what we do. And that is when you go with your friends to watch a movie at a theater, right? You watch the movie, and whether the movie's good or bad, when you leave the theater, all you want to do is talk to your friends about what you just saw. You want to break it down. You want to see, oh, did you guys catch this? Did you see that? Or it's just like, man, I loved this part, or oh, I hated this part, whatever. That conversation between best friends is what we try to emulate and just have about anything, whether it's video games or movies or, serious matters like what's been going on in the last couple weeks, or just like more personal stuff, like what's going on in our lives. We found that if we are interested in talking about something, people are going to be interested in listening to that. Because if I'm sitting across the table with somebody that is like-minded, there's going to be more like-minded people out there that are just looking for avenues to be part of that conversation. And there's always that meme of the kid that's like, it's me listening to my favorite podcast, and it's like the picture of him sitting next to a picture of a bunch of people. Do you know what I'm talking about? And like he's eating the ice cream with them. It's like, that's real. Like we make that and to have a place that people can go to every day or just pop in every once in a while. And it'll always feel like a welcome home to people. That just, that sense of community.
That's really the difficulty in it, because it's not something that you can just say, it's this. And I think community is the most important takeaway from it, because that kind of encapsulates all the tendrils. So I watch something Kinda Funny related every day because it's just my go-to. I love hearing you guys. And sometimes, I'm going to be honest, I don't always pay attention to what everybody's talking about. I just kind of like having that virtual vibe of, these are people who I would hang out with if it was in person. I would hang out with these people. When I was younger, I would get with my friends and other artists to draw, and it was like a communal thing. So it's kind of like has that vibe. Yeah.
Exactly. Oh man, that's the thing is it's like my best friend in the world growing up, me and him would, back in like seventh grade, like we'd play video games together. He'd come over, we'd hang out all day. Then he'd go home and like we'd call each other and we'd be on the phone with each other. We weren't necessarily talking. Like a lot of the time we would be. Otherwise, we're just kind of there and like we're just like playing games separately, doing whatever it is we're doing. And thinking back, like that's a weird thing to do,
Yeah.
but it's like that's what kids do. It's like they want these friendships. They kind of just want people to always be there. And that's kind of what this is. It's just kind of like, there's conversations happening that like you'll be listening to, but it is kind of just in the background. But at any moment, like you can like get when you hear something that like triggers you, you're like, oh, I should pay attention to this for a second. It's fun. I mean, in a lot of ways, it reminds me like I'm so blessed that I get to do what I do for a living, especially with the people that I do it with. I love them all so much, and our team. It is insane how much grown and how talented and passionate and amazing our entire team is. But it reminds me a lot of going to school, at the good parts of school, the fun parts of school, the recesses or lunches, or, as we get into high school, the kind of just like, cutting class, whatever in between. But like, it's the things that the things worth doing your homework for. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I'm going to get to go to school. I'm going to get to hang out with my friends, and we're just going to chill. We're just going to be in the courtyard hanging out and chilling. And somehow I turned that into
that's it.
a
And
career.
I think what is the only difference is that video is the camera, right? Because that's all that really is different about what you're describing and what I'm consuming on the end that I'm consuming it on. And it's kind of also inspired me when you guys first made the shift. So to give a little bit more background, of how I came across you guys and what people, might be interested in knowing is I was watching IGN like crazy, and I was also listening to a bunch of other video game related podcasts. And I think that's because I don't have time to play as much video games as I want to play. Because whenever I'm sitting playing them, I feel guilty that I'm not working on my artwork. And I started to realize that my favorite content to consume was video game related content. It was so bizarre. And I knew about games. Yeah. And I knew about games I never got a chance to play. I could tell you all about Skyrim before I had a chance to play it. And I started like, getting into realizing that I was like, oh, but I like this guy's podcast about it. But this person I'm not really that into, so I'm going to stick over here. And I started to realize this is new territory, like podcasting. And back then, I'm talking about 2010 or something. And so when you guys, you weren't really on camera all that much at IGN, but I knew Greg. And I knew Colin. And then when you guys went and did Kind of Funny or Game Over Greggy show on YouTube, I'm like, holy shit. This is interesting. And watching the development, I encourage anybody, because the theme of the reason I want to do this show, Attack, is because I want to get people to realize to get up and just do shit. Like, I'm going to be messing up this show weekly until I figure out what I'm doing. And I don't care. And I'm happy to do it publicly. But what you guys did was so inspiring. Because I remember, if you go back and watch episode 1 of Game Over Greggy, to when you guys had your studio set up and pre-COVID and all that kind of stuff, it blew my mind. But it was almost this amazing social experiment to watch develop. Because I'm like, look at these guys. They're just constantly like screwing up on camera, fixing it episode to episode. And it's so inspiring. And I wonder if you get that sense that from on your end that you have that effect on other people. Yeah.
Man, I really appreciate all that. And yeah, I think that's actually kind of part of it all, where a long time ago, I remember when I was working at IGN, when I first got my job there, I was the young kid. Like, I was significantly younger than my contemporaries, especially back when I was an intern. Like Nick Scarpino, who's now my business partner, was my boss for years. And he's 10 years older than me. And there was like this thing where they had all created what video game internet video looks like at IGN. Like, and for people unfamiliar, IGN is essentially the ESPN of video games. But for the longest time, IGN was just the new iteration of video game magazines. So they took EGM and Nintendo Power and these ideas of these written articles and reviews and previews of video games, and then they put it on the internet because that's the natural evolution of how things went. But at some point, the internet turned to video. It was in 2005 that YouTube started. But even then, people they were uploading videos of, a dog on a skateboard. It wasn't like making TV quality content. And IGN definitely were some of the pioneers for internet video. I'd say IGN, I would say College Humor, a lot of these big media groups that realized the value of video. So the IGN video team kind of created a whole bunch of products, among other people too, like GameSpot, and like there were other groups like rising up at the same time. But they created what internet video could look like and the foundation there. And then there was this next generation that I was a part of that kind of grew up with YouTube, grew up with personality, grew up with people talking to a camera, not just talking in front of a camera. And this level of connection and intimacy that it's not just about the people on camera, it's about connecting with the people that are listening and watching and making them feel like they are part of the content and that their choices and thoughts matter as well. The calls to action, the, hey, leave a comment below, click this, do this, like talking to them and having them interact, it almost makes it like a video game where you are part of this experience. And I had to kind of explain to them the value of that and to change the way they were thinking about making content. And I feel like somewhere along the line there, I remember Eric Hart, who was very high up at IGN at the time, and a good friend of mine, he was talking to me, he's like, Tim, like, I'm always going to listen to you when it comes to this stuff because you're the one that consumes this content. You know this stuff. And I remember telling him, I was like, I only know this, though, because I consume it and pay attention myself. There's going to come a day where I'm not going to know this stuff anymore because there's kids growing up younger than me that have their own way of thinking, and I need to be open to listening to them the way that Eric was listening to me. And I think that that has been the key to my success so far, and to Kind of Funny success, is I never allowed myself or the team to be like, we got it, we know what we're doing. It's always be uncomfortable. It's always put yourself in the position of like, okay, cool, we've done this way for 5 years. We should still think about why we're doing it that way. Should we be doing it a different way? And I think when you look at the team that we've kind of built, and we recently hired this kid Blessing, awesome, who is amazing. He's from a different generation than me, man. He's 5 years younger than me, and it's like 5 years in now time with technology might as well be an eternity. Like, things are different for him. Like the way that they make content, that their generation makes and consumes content's different than me. I'm going on a very long rant here, but the point of it is, it has always been iterate. Look at the feedback. Don't just sit in a bubble and just think that what you're doing is right just because it's working. Always ask, okay, but what can work better? Or if this stops working, what else can work? Or what's the next thing I should be doing that is 5 steps ahead of the game? Like what changes can we make? And an example of that for us is the video wall that we have in our studio, where it's coming up with solutions to problems that are going to affect us for years to come. What are we at our core? We're a podcast video network. We make, let's just say, 10 different shows. All they are different combinations of people sitting at a table talking about different topics. That's it. How do we make each one of them look different and feel different, especially when we're in an apartment in San Francisco without much space? We're not in a giant studio facility. And we came up with this idea of, cool, what if we made a whole wall LED, like a video wall, that we could put anything on it so we can, at an instant, make new sets, make every show have its own identity, its own feel. And that allowed us to have 10 different shows that feel totally different visually with just one investment of money. And it was a lot of money, to be fair, but it's not as much money as having to create practical sets, for every new show that we make. And that's the thing that's now being adopted across the industry.
You guys basically pioneered what The Mandalorian is doing now, is what you're saying.
And like, that's funny. Obviously, Mandalorian, that's a different ass level. But what I'm talking about is, like, we did that, and then IGN got it, and then GameStop got one too, and Ubisoft, and the list goes down. But it's just like, we did that, and it's like crazy to think about that because we're just a couple dudes that like talking about video games.
Such a key point, because sometimes you don't realize the effect you're having, and I think you're 100% right that when I see you guys do something, I see a trickle down effect, for lack of a better term, of other people kind of iterating on that? Because you guys have always tried to be nimble. You've had to be. You had no choice. You had to be resourceful.
Mm-hmm.
You're competing,
Yeah.
For anybody watching on YouTube, they're not getting an explanation. Well, like, okay, before you watch this video, IGN is a couple of dudes. I mean, IGN is a big company, and these guys are a couple of dudes. So please don't compare the production value. People are just going to scrutinize across the board. So it either looks good or it doesn't.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that resourcefulness to
Mm-hmm.
me speaks to why I think you guys are such a great team, because you're not comfortable. You don't settle, and that's one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, how do you stay ahead of trends like that, and how do you decide which is something that deserves to be revisited and reiterated? Are there like times where one of you will say, I think this is good, we should keep it the way it is, and then someone else knows, I think we got to get ahead of things here? And that must be really tough, because you have to like evangelize for something that doesn't exist yet or might be wrong in the future. And as a group of guys, yeah.
Honestly, man,
I was just gonna say, like, as just a group of friends who work together, I wonder if that's difficult sometimes versus somebody with a built-in hierarchy structure.
I mean,
Right.
trade it for the world. Having worked at IGN, which I love from the bottom of my heart, I was there for 5 years, and they had that structure, and it was so frustrating to get anything done. Kind of funny is the opposite of that. It's not frustrating at all to get things done, which makes it scarier sometimes. And there is a lot more on the line of, if I'm like, we need to do this, it's going to work, I need to back that up, or I need to admit it's not working early on. And I think that that's the key is, any relationship only succeeds if there's honesty and communication going on. And I feel like that is kind of what this is all about. And like, how do we kind of know what trends to follow or whatever? It's about listening. And then it's really about not just saying your piece and waiting for the next person to stop talking so you can to start talking again. It's looking at the team and really understanding where everyone's skill sets lie and trusting them to do the thing. Don't tell people how to do their job. Listen to them and find what job they should be doing, and then like double down on that. And like that to me is the key thing, and why we get to work so well is because there isn't really a structure of, oh man, like me, Greg, and Nick founded the company, so we're at the top and only our ideas go. It's like, it is about listening to every single person on the team and going from there. The bigger thing, though, is it's not just the team. It is the community. And a common thing I see on the internet is don't look at the comments. Don't read the comments. And I get that. I understand where that comes from, because the comments can be a very, very, very nasty place. And honestly, even if they're an amazing place, that one comment that is criticizing you, even if it's not a bad thing, is going to stick with you, and it hurts. And you really do need to be able to compartmentalize that and look at it for what it is. But my advice is read every single comment. Take it in. It doesn't mean that they're right, but just understand what they're trying to say and then make your next move accordingly. I literally have read every single comment on Kind of Funny videos for Kind of Funny and Kind of Funny games. Every day I'm looking through the comments and seeing stuff because I want to know what people are thinking. I don't need to agree with them. And then a lot of times I'm like, I don't agree with you. I'm going to keep doing this XYZ way, right? But I've learned so much, and to be able to shift and see the trends and understand what people want, you need to be able to listen. You need to be able to get in there and, put your shields up, understand it's going to be hard and it's going to hurt. But all of it's worth it for the comments that make you feel good and that validate that what you're doing is right and what we are building is strong.
Do you have an example of like a shift that was pretty controversial within you guys as a team, and then you had to roll the dice on somebody's suggestion and it worked out well, or one that didn't work out so well?
Honestly, it's funny because we tend to agree with each other. If somebody is like, this is what I think we should do, they've put enough thought into it that we agree, where it's like, you know what? Those are valid points. Let's try it. And it tends to work. And if it doesn't, then we just figure it out the next time. Like, I know that's a boring answer to that, but we do a thing where, so January 5th was the day we left IGN to start our own thing in 2015. And we called that Kind of Funny Day. And every year we celebrate, we do a big live stream, And that's kind of our like refresh point where we'll announce our new content or announce changes. Like it's our biggest kind of programming slate change every year. And from the community, we have gotten a lot of feedback from people being like, hey man, like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But there's so many factors that go into things that like you don't just see watching it. Because watching a show on YouTube, it's not just, oh, how many views did it get? It's not that simple. It's, okay, well, this show got this many views, but because it's covering similar topics to this other show, it caused that show to drop significantly. And overall, that's affecting things this way, that way, whatever it is. Or it's things like, oh man, well, Greg Miller's on too many shows now. He's burning out. So we're getting rid of the show or changing what the show is or the format or whatever because we do so much stuff that we need to make sure that our entire team is firing on all cylinders and optimized this way or that way. It's like just moving pieces around until the puzzle like finally works. And I think having this mentality of every year, once October comes around, I really start looking at every single thing we do and questioning why. And that goes to any show we do, no matter how successful it is, no matter what like lineage we've had with it. It's looking at and being like, I like to think of it of like, what if we canceled all of our shows right now and started over? What shows would we make? And then go from there. Because if we end up answering with the same answers that we've been doing for the last year, it's like, cool, let's keep going. If not, we should really think hard and be like, let's change things up. And we've done that a couple times. And we're finally getting to a point that I'm like, we are pretty much as dialed in as we possibly can be given the resources we have. We recently got a new studio and we're building that out. Once we have that built out, that'll allow us to hire more people. That'll allow us to do a whole bunch more new stuff. But right now, with where we're at, there's literally no more room to bring in more employees. And if we can't bring in more employees, we are at capacity of our ability to make content and sustain it. And that's from every level, both resource-wise of creating the content, but also for not wanting to flood the channel with too much stuff because there is such thing as too much.
And one of the pieces of content that you guys created, speaking about staying ahead, and I know you're not necessarily trying to one up people, but that's how it comes. I mean, it doesn't come across that way, but wow, you guys it was when you guys started doing your live events, and I think that was a moment for those people who don't know, and I'm sure we'll have some B-roll playing because we produce this now. There's a moment that you guys decided we're going to do a live show. And at the first time you guys did that, there was other people doing live podcasts like Dignation and all that. And they had a live audience and all that. But it was just different. It was almost like from home, you could almost not tell the difference if you framed the camera right. But you guys blew up the format, and it felt as close as you can get to go watch a band play live. You're right. So and the production value and all that, and I thought that kind of stepped things up where no longer would I be able to easily explain, oh, they are internet personalities and they cover this and they're opinionators and all that. No, it's just it's cultural, it's community. It was a place where all the people who are remote, putting comments online and chatting on message boards, got to be together. And it was almost like at that point, you guys could go home. You created a community for these people to hang out, become friends, and those things have spun out into other pieces of content. And that is so ingenious.
OK Beast is an amazing example of that, right? This group that saw what we did and was like, hey, we have our own version of that. Like, we have different takes that we want to try that. We could do it too. So they started it. It's super successful now. And that's where we got blessing from. Like, this kid that started in the community, started his own thing, proved he could do it. And now he's doing it with us. Like, it's inspiring, man. I love it so much. And when it comes to the Kind of Funny live shows, those are my babies. That is what I am most proud of when it comes to Kind of Funny and what we have accomplished for all the reasons you said. But that all goes back to what I was saying earlier about you need to consume content and you need to listen and you need to understand what makes this special if you're going to create it. Otherwise, it's soulless. It isn't going to do what you want. It kind of just becomes a cookie cutter machine. We don't want it to be like that. We want it to be, this is made by people for people. And growing up, when I was in middle school, high school, like there was these artists, music artists, hip hop artists in New York that I idolized. I loved them. I
Who was
loved
it?
the work that they did, everything that they um, the label's called QN5, but the different artists were Tone Deaf and Cunning Linguist and like just these different artists, underground hip hop stuff. But it's that underground level where they can have this intimate connection. They had message boards. I was on those message boards every single day. And they announced that every year they were going to do a live show. And there was the QN5 Mega Show. And people from all around the world would fly out for this one weekend. And it wasn't looked at as a concert. It was looked at as an event. And it was just a concert. But they made sure that every single thing they did was special and like was trying to create moments for the fans. And at the end of the day, I'm from San Francisco, and I was like an 18-year-old boy, and I've never flown in my life, but I'm like, I'm going to New York. I got to be here. I got to be part of this. And it was the best decision I ever made. Going there, meeting all the people that I've been talking to on these message boards for years, and just hanging out and having fun. And to what you were saying, like, the concert could have not even happened, and it would have been worth the trip for me, because just being with those people was so great. When we started Kind of Funny and we first were talking about doing a live show, I was talking to the guys and I was just like, we can't just put a table up and talk. Like, we need this to blow people's minds and to make them think anything is possible. We need to be there and just be like, cool, this is worth your money. This is worth you flying across the world to watch a bunch of stupid dudes doing stupid things. The funniest thing is if people that don't know us were to watch Kind of Funny live, it's the cringiest thing of all time. And I understand that. But for the people that listen every day, it's rewarding them for the moments. It's rewarding them for caring about our stupid jokes and to see them realized in real life together in a room where I want the energy in the room to be palpable.
It reminds me of two things, and the first thing is being a kid and going to, I don't know how old are you, dude? Do you say that? 30. Okay. Yeah, because you're 30.
30.
Yeah, okay. All right, so I remember going to Warped Tour and Lollapalooza and Ozfest. 'Cause all I wanted to do when I was a kid was being in a band.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was like 18, like in high school, I would go to every concert. I would sneak under the buses to meet every artist. I got pictures with everybody you can imagine. And I was always trying to like just connect, and I didn't have anything to pitch. And so eventually I got a little shitty band together. Then I would record and give tapes out. And that hustle back then, I got signed to a record label when I was 18 years old with my band when I was, and I've always felt like, dude, there's a way to get shit done. The difference was back then, being in a band, you had 4 other people who were artists and eccentrics to begin with, and getting everybody on the same page is really difficult. Again, why I admire you guys so much. But knowing that formula, I taught students for 13 years. I'm like, dudes, you're way ahead in so many respects that you have the internet, you have cameras, you have all this shit. Just pick an idea and fucking do it. And those live events felt like the kind of like the icing, like the crystallization of what you guys were going for from the beginning. And then to speak to the other thing that you just said, if people don't know and they watch and they don't understand what's going on, well, I've been a Howard Stern fan for my whole life since I was a little kid, and there are jokes now that are references to 20 years ago. And if you've been listening forever, you're like, oh shit. If you don't know what's going on and you watch Howard Stern do a live show, whatever, you're like, what are all these jokes? Who are these guests? Who are these whack packers? And I was just thinking the other day how much I get certain Howard Stern show vibes from Kind of Funny in that respect. Like, there are certain jokes that are like a moment that got blown up for a year, and there are things that come back around, and if you just watch it for the first time, I think it is entertaining on its own. But if you just watch it for the first time, you hopefully get to the point where you're just treating it with what I think you guys want it to be, which is a hang, and then that rewards you going forward. You know, it's exactly that. It's exactly that.
Totally. I mean, this is definitely giving us way too much credit. But my goal is for Kind of Funny live events to feel like Avengers Endgame for Kind of Funny fans.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's like obviously we don't nail that, and I don't think anything can, because Avengers Endgame, beautiful. But We try that, right? Where we look at the year of podcasts as the separate MCU movies, and it's like, cool, we're building all these little things. What can we do? Like, what could be our cap grabbing Mjolnir moment? What could be our portal scene? Like, that's really what it is. And even if it's the dumbest things ever, one of the things I love to do for people that don't know who we are, when like my fiance Gia, some of her friends or family will be like, what do you do? Like, this is like, why do you have so many Twitter followers? Like, it's always such a weird conversation, and trying to explain it. Like, I'll tell them all the stuff, like the movie theater and the best friends and all that whole story. But then Gia's always like, no, but Tim, like, you need to like, you're underselling what this is. And so then we usually will bring up Kind of Funny Live videos to show them. And then that's when they're like, okay, now I really don't understand. How is this possible that these people care this much? Which blows my mind. But a perfect example of it, and a clip that I often show because of how ridiculous it is and how cringeworthy it would be for people watching this that don't consume the content, is there's this ongoing joke we have of bongos where Nick would bongo on Kevin's belly. Like, he'll pull his shirt up and bongo on the belly. And Kevin is like, plays into it that he hates it or whatever, and he'll only do it for charity. And like, it's been this thing where it's like an ongoing joke over years of when is Kevin going to allow people to bongo him? Like, when's it going to happen? Which is so stupid to say out loud. But a Kind of Funny Life 3, we had a song made that was like this drum and bass song that was absolutely insane. We had Kevin go on stage. There was smoke firing up, and there was literally 1,000 people in the crowd losing their minds when Kevin took his shirt off for Nick to just slap him on the belly. And the crowd is jumping, going crazy. And it's just like, awesome. What have we done? Like, how is this possible? And it's so good, stupid.
Dude. It's so good. And the more I would do these conventions and meet people at the booths and all that stuff, the more I realized that it's almost like the artwork that I was making is secondary. It's the fact that, like, we're meeting people, talking about what we do, and giving them that sense of community. And that's what that was at your Kind of Funny Live events. I feel like they're just big celebrations of, like, look at us, we got a community going on. That's so cool. In a world where we are connected,
yeah, man.
Here I'm going to sound like I'm trying to be poetic. I'm not, but we are connected, but we're physically distant. And now, especially, it's the one thing I miss more than anything is that kind of celebration of community, and it's why I wanted to do a show. As I started doing these little IG live shows, I'm like, I just want to talk to people and hang with people and connect with people. And so, that to me is what separates it. That's what makes it different. And it makes me also think that we probably are in boxes too often with what, we should be doing. Like, I have this in the back of my mind that I'm going to put out a show. Like, we announced it today. We're putting out a show. And that, people are going to be like, who the hell wants to hear you talk about anything? Go make something. Go draw something so I can put it on my wall. You know what I mean? But in my mind, I'm like, well, this is just who I am, and I'm just trying to carve pieces of it and put it out virtually so that I exist in this space fully realized, and that's a model that I think people are going to follow for a long time. What you guys created, in my world, there's a bunch of artists that I look at, and a bunch of creators that I look at, and when I'm feeling like my creative slump a little bit, I go, let me just crack open one of these books, and I go, I got like a psyched up moment for that. And I'm wondering if that exists in your space for you. Do you?
I mean, dude, yeah, like. Again, I'm not making this up. It's like Avengers Endgame. The chills you get watching those scenes. Like, I often listen to random hype trailer music and just like let it consume me and like kind of just close my eyes and think about it and just be like, this is making me have a physical reaction. I'm literally getting chills listening to this. How can we like take that and turn it into something? Like what dumb idea can we have that is the next bongos thing? Like, what if we did another Kind of Funny Live event? Like, what would make people feel rewarded and validated for their time that they've spent hanging out with us, listening to us, So yeah, I definitely, I go back to that stuff all the time, just to like get me in the right headspace of like, why do we do this? Like, why am I doing this? And it's for the chills. It's for that, like, that level of like validation of all of this was worth it for this moment, like you have,
competition in any regard? I always like to ask that question because I choose to, the art world well, there's like this sector of art world that I'm in, and it's like there's a lot of pretty mellow people creating artwork, and I know that I look around every time I do a show and I'm like, who is out here, who's making something killer, and why haven't I closed that gap yet? And that's all I think about, and it kind of like makes me want to one up. And it's not malicious, it's just I want to be, and I wonder if you have that mindset. I feel like you might, and I wonder if you do, and what that looks like in your head.
Yeah, man. It's funny. When I was 8 years old, I learned the word rival playing Pokemon Red and Blue, and I didn't understand what that was. But the game teaches you, and I, for some reason, really connected with it. Where it's like, cool, these guys are friends. They've grown up together, but like they are rivals. They are pushing each other, and by the end of the game, you were facing off against each other, right? And my friend group growing up that I'm still extremely close to, like I'm born and raised San Francisco, so are they, and we haven't left. Like we're all here, and there's just something about this group that I have that middle school, high school, throughout all of that, we were like good kids. Like our parents never had to force us to do our homework or whatever. Like we just kind of wanted to like do better, and I think a lot of that had to do with we were kind of looking at each other as competition. We wanted to outdo each other. Like we wanted to, get a better grade on the test than the other person. Not malicious. It was just we looked at each other as the standards. Let's push, let's push, let's push. And I think I've kind of like kept that in my life. And, I'm always, this goes back to what I was saying earlier, you got to consume the content yourself. You have to listen. And I often look at IGN and see what they're doing now, or Rooster Teeth is probably the best example of a group that does what we do on a much bigger scale. And I look at them as competition in a lot of ways, but more so I look at them as kind of a roadmap. And that doesn't mean a roadmap to follow. That means a roadmap to look at and decide, this doesn't make sense for us, or this does. What if I did this way? Like whatever. It's never about copying. It's always about iterating. And sometimes iterating does mean doing the exact same thing, but just because you're doing it, 100%. It's different.
One thing I had always thought about, and it kind of hit me the other day. I was listening to a Gamescast, which is one of your shows where you guys talk specifically about video games. When I started watching, Game Over Greggy and the early days of Kind of Funny, I felt like you were like this young kid, kind of like, right? I mean, I'm 37, so the gap probably would have been even more
totally.
back then. Yeah, right? But
I was, man. Early days of Kind of Funny, I was like, when we left IGN, I was 25.
Joke for people who watch the show a lot, is let Tim host. And back then, I think it was a joke because it was funny because you were the young guy and they were more established. And then when Colin left, my first thought was, I thought that Kind of Funny was going to miss this facet of this kind of like straight edge, insightful perspective on games. And and the other day I'm watching and it hit me and I'm like, dude, you've kind of filled and surpassed that role in a lot of ways. Let me explain. Well, let me explain it.
That's hilarious.
Because, I have a question tied to it, but the fact of the matter is I perceive that you kind of dug deeper, maybe felt that gap or something, but it doesn't feel like a hole at all anymore. In fact, there's just this vibe of seriousness and knowledge and experience that, comes with time. But there's also this sense of positivity around it that I think is that extra special flavor that you brought to it. And it kind of shows this new expression of what an expert can be. That's, that word expert gets thrown. I know it throws around, but you know what I mean? But somebody who knows their shit, but isn't a gatekeeper, you know what I mean? And I felt like that vibe was really, really important to get put out there just because I know how many people watch you. And I know that kids really look at YouTubers as rock stars. Like I looked at, bands when I was a kid. And so anything that you guys do, whether you want it to or not, is going to be something that people are modeling their vibe and personality on. So I thought that was really strong. And I wondered if at the time Did you guys feel like that was important to address? Did you even sense that? Was it a goal? Or did it just happen kind of organically?
I appreciate everything you just said. That is very, very kind. But honestly, yeah, it to me comes back to the fact that I've been now in the industry 10 years. That's a third of my life. Like, the industry hasn't been around much longer than that. Like, when you're looking at specifically games media, it's like, when it comes to the internet stuff, it's like, cool, add another like 5-6 years to that, but that's not that much in the grand scheme of things. Like, I've seen it all. Like, I've been at 10 E3s. Like, that's crazy to me. And the only one I'm missing is this year because there isn't one, right? So I've kind of seen the industry kind of change, and I've been a part of it, and I've been a part of that change in a lot of ways. So that's pretty crazy. But yeah, looking back at how things have shifted, Colin's voice will always be missed at Kind of Funny. Like, he has a perspective that none of us do, and he has a understanding and a knowledge of video games that is extremely, extremely unique, and from a point of passion that simply none of us have. We've had so many different voices since then, whether they're full-time employees or part-timers like Gary Whitta or Andrew Renee or Jared Petty or Daniel Dwyer. Like, we're constantly trying to get different perspectives, and we value all of them. But it was very intimidating for me to be at the same table with a Greg and a Colin who are regarded as kind of like one of the most dynamic duos in podcasting history, right? From their work on Beyond. And to kind of go in, no matter what happens, we will never have that type of magic. That was lightning in a bottle, right? And so many people grew up with it, and it's the thing of like, I liked them back at their first album. It's that kind of vibe, right? We just always committed to pushing through that. Don't worry about that. Let's take that and run with it. Like, we don't need to outdo ourselves. Yeah. We just need to do the next right thing. And we kept trying to do that. And yeah, just over time, I definitely found a lot more confidence. Yeah. And it just comes with doing it. Like, you don't get good at podcasting until you podcast, and then podcast again and again and again and again. And the next thing you know, it's second nature. Like, we literally, everyone at Kind of Funny right now can podcast for 10 hours a day and then do it again the next day. And it's just like, this is what we do. We know how to do this. We know the chemistry is formed. And that's the most important thing, is chemistry. Making sure that you are building a rapport. And again, I sound like a broken record here. It is about listening. Like, when you're making a show with people, it can't just be different people talking. It needs to be people communicating together.
It's amazing. And it feels like it feels like so much work, and then it doesn't look like it's any work at all. And I think that's the magic, right? Because I've been learning that now, working this is the first time I've ever been able to work full time as an artist at this point in my life. And I've been trying. Well, thank you, dude. I appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
So cool.
Every day I'm waiting for the phone call where they're like, I think we made a mistake. But either way, until then, I feel like one of the challenges is to be able to get up in the morning, go do this work, and there's tons of it to do. And then figure out when to clock out, because I'm having so much fun, and B, I have this feeling of guilt that I don't know if you ever got or get, where I don't feel like I really worked today. And I know people are out there grinding their asses off to do certain things they don't want to do. I did it forever.
Yeah.
And I just feel like I didn't really work. I feel like I've been on summer vacation since I started working. And I wonder, how do you manage that? Because I feel like maybe even more so Kind of Funny must feel like that. Like you said, it's your friends, people you've known forever. But there must be a ton of work that goes behind it. And what does that work day even look like? What does that even look like?
Oh, yeah. Well, so that's the thing, is doing podcasts and hanging out with your friends is just that. However, it is work. It is making sure that chemistry I was talking about is always being matched. And we've found at Kind of Funny that we have a 2-show rule. You shouldn't be on more than 2 shows a day. Shows are typically an hour, 15 minutes. And no matter how spread out they are, and just the way that we have our schedule, we average there's 3 shows a day. There's 2 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon. The one in the afternoon is usually a little bit longer. We found that if you're on 2 shows, that is the pinnacle of what we're going to get. Like that is when you're firing on all cylinders. You're kind of warmed up the most, like everything's good. The moment you add a 3rd show, it goes to hell. It's so obvious, and your performance on all 3 shows is lesser. And so that's the thing is like, even though it is just talking, you get tired doing it, man. And you get worn out and you don't think about it, but it's happening. And we see it. And we've seen it time and time again with all of us. So we are always looking at the calendar and trying to look out for each other and be like, oh, hey, Nick, Tuesday is looking bad for you. Let me host this show instead. So, you can do it on Thursday or whatever, blah, 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 just to like kind of like have each other's backs and make sure that we're firing on all cylinders. That's the work. It's that type of stuff. And I think that that's the thing for me where, yeah, in a lot of ways, it feels like summer vacation and all of that. And hey, we're just talking about like one of our most popular shows, one of my favorite shows to do is Kind of Funny in Review, where every week we watch a movie, we choose a franchise, and every week we watch a new installment in that franchise and we review and rank them against each other. Love it. What does that require from us? To watch a movie and then talk about it. That's awesome. What a great life, right? That, for as fun as it is backed up in everything. The summer vacation gets knocked out of me immediately when I realize I'm responsible for 7 people's salaries and jobs. And I need to make sure that our entire team, Joey, Blessing, Cool Greg, Kevin, Barrett, Andy, that all of them have things to do, are taken care of, have a future in the company, have a growth plan, have trajectories, like are happy, are, feeling heard. Like that's the work. And it's like it's kind of the fear of not only letting people down, but not supporting them to the utmost, because that's what we're about, right? And we want to grow and continue to give people more opportunities to be able to do the amazing things that we love to do.
Man. And it's definitely something that I think about when I'm working is like, how do you guys do it? Greg just had the Batman comic come out, I think today, officially. Isn't that crazy? And
yeah.
Isn't that cool shit?
Yeah. Greg Miller, one of the biggest DC fans in the world, one of the biggest comic book fans in the world, never would have thought that he'd write a comic book. That's not his passion. That's not what he wants to do. And through sheer willpower and positivity and confidence and putting good will out there.
That's exactly the point. And I was just going to say, it doesn't seem odd because of that. If in any other regard, it might seem odd, but it doesn't seem odd because of that. And so the reason I bring it up is because it's exactly what this show, I hope, is about for people, is seeing the mindset that goes behind what you guys do, the fruit of the labor, and how that can be almost anywhere on the map. And so I was wondering, do you have something like that in your mind? Because you've accomplished already so much with Kind of Funny, and I know that in and of itself is almost bigger than anything you can do. But something that's like, before I hang up the headphones and put the mic down, I would like to have this on my resume.
That's the best thing about Kind of Funny, that like you started this off saying like, what is Kind of Funny? Like, how do you explain it? It's like, that's kind of the beautiful thing about all this is it's whatever we want it to be. Like, we have this entire structure based with, since we use Patreon, it's funded by people, and we look at it as like a subscription service. And when we have a crazy idea, we put it out there. And if people want it to happen, they fund it. It ends up happening. We've funded an entire animated series, which is like one of Nick's dreams. And it happened, We've done so many weird things. Like let's try stand-up comedy. We made a stand-up comedy special. It's like, it's cool that we are allowed and empowered to live through those dreams and make them happen. Just do it. We have this thing that backs it. And I love that that's true for everyone at Kind of Funny. If anybody had some crazy idea, it's like, cool, go for it. Let's make it happen. Like, if anyone, and I don't think anybody does currently, but if anyone on the team was like, I want to write a book, it'd be like, cool. Let's get that on the New York Times bestseller list. Let's go, baby. It's that type of thing. For me, the one thing that I've always wanted to do is make a comedy rap album. Like, I've always wanted to do some like Lonely Island type stuff. And specifically, I'd love to do it with my brother. And I'm sure that if we did it, that people would vibe with it and enjoy it. It is more just a thing of timing. And I've, like I said earlier, it's like I've found that there's a lot of work when you have a team and making sure that everything's going well. And it's like, as much as I want to have fun and do this silly thing, it's like I have responsibilities that are a bit more important. But one day that'll happen.
Now it's out there in the world. Now you have to be accountable for it. We'll do that. I don't want to keep going. I have one more question, and then I'll let you go. That's cool. So the funny thing about this whole industry that you were talking about is how it's made up of a bunch of young people. You know, with the exception here and there of a few people who I won't oust. But the point is, sometimes I wonder, what does in your mind kind of funny look like 10, 20, 30 years from now? And is there, in your opinion, I mean, things change obviously with every day now. In your opinion, would there still be a quest to speak to the younger up and coming generation like there kind of seems to be now? Or would you still, or would you still be trying to like speak primarily to the people who have been there since day one?
I mean, like I said earlier, like the guy Eric Hart that worked at IGN, who I now model so many of my decisions based off of him because he gave me that chance and pushed me. It wasn't just, oh, I hired you, go figure it out. It's like every step of the way, he listened to me and spoke to me and kind of empowered me so much. I want to be that for Blessing now. I want to be that for Andy and for Barrett, for everyone on the team. And I want to instill that in them so that they do it for the next guys and girls. And then they instill it in the next and next and so on and so on. Like, that's what I want. I never want that to end. And it's a lot of work, but that's very important. In terms of the future of Kind of Funny, like, anything can happen. And my God, I would have never imagined we'd be where we're at when we started. It's crazy. But I don't ever see Kind of Funny getting bigger than 20 people. We're at about 10 right now. I can see us doubling. That to me sounds where I envision us being and would want to see for us to do everything that I can imagine us doing. All of that can change at any point. Who knows? One day we might be a 300-person company. I don't see that happening. And I don't necessarily want that to happen. I'm not against it happening, but a lot of things would have to change. With the mindset and mentality that Kind of Funny has now about it is intimate, it is very much about every single personal connection. Everyone that we hire on this team needs to be a perfect fit. Like, we need them to be family. It can't just be, oh, we're hiring this person because they're good at that job. It's like, that's part of it, but they need to have this kind of, ride or die attitude about, wanting to be a part of this team. And I hope that one day we have a team of 20 that it feels as tight as our team of 10 right now.
Dude. And I really hope that that's what happens. And then, 10, 20 years from now, we're like, these are the guys that started it and they're now the next generation. It would be a good thing. Well, here's I wanted to bring it up for people who never got to see it. Like, here's the little shirt that I designed for you guys, because I know there's people out there. Do you still have it available for sale on your shop? All right. If anybody made it
kindoffunny.com/store,
go and check out the Portillo shirt and support these guys. Definitely. You guys are awesome. Dude, thank you. I can't thank you enough, not only for coming and doing the show that, is just getting off the ground, but more importantly, for the energy you guys have put out, for publicly living and growing in front of so many people, and doing that, what you just said, is being the model, the roadmap, and how to change on the dime, to grow on the dime, to just say something and then it's real the next day. It's so amazing. And it's part of why I had the confidence to do what I'm doing and experiment and test things out. And it's the energy I just want to promote. So thank you, brother. Appreciate it so much. All right, man.
I love it, man. Hey, congrats again on doing the art full time. That is such a beautiful thing. You made it happen, dude. You made it happen. And it's like, if you could do it, if I could do it, anyone listening right now,
that's the idea.
You can do it, man.
That's the idea. Well, thank
you just got to push.
Man. I appreciate it. And I'm going to wrap it up here. So if you want to follow Tim and Kind of Funny and everything you're doing, where can we check you out? Where's the best places?
You can follow me at Tim Gettys on Twitter, Instagram, all the stuff, or Kind of Funny, just YouTube, Kind of Funny. We have Kind of Funny and Kind of Funny Games. One's about video games, one's about everything else.
Man, I love talking to Tim. Gets me so amped up. Guys, click like and subscribe, and let me know what you thought about the video in the comments below. We have so much more cool stuff coming out, including live streams, process videos, and if you want to be the first to know about anything that we're doing, head to skybound.com/attackpeter to get on our mailing list. We'll put links for everything below in the description. All right, guys, peace.